Hey everybody, it's Elisa Rogers and we are back with Simply Southern Recipes by the Rocket City Girls. Today we are going to do a Greek pot roast. And I'm going to make some garlic parmesan mashed potatoes, rustic mashed potatoes, and some Greek style green beans, fresh green beans, and what they call mayonnaise rolls, but we're going to put a little garlic butter on them. But anyway, what I've done so far is I have preheated my oven to 225 degrees. We're going to sear this 2.5 pound chuck roast once I put the seasonings and stuff on it. And then we'll add all of these ingredients and we'll go through them one at a time and put it in the oven and let it cook in there for about 2.5 hours on really, really low, 225 degrees. Now, after that, let me see. Is there anything else I need to tell you? No, COVID's still going on. And so I'm trying to come up with recipes that I haven't done in a long time, and this is one of them, and it's one of my family's favorites. So, very inexpensive to do, simple, quick, easy. So let's get started. 2.5 pound chunk roast. I've got a skillet over here with some olive oil in it, and I have got it on a medium-high heat, heating up for me. I am going to put some salt all over this. Just regular old table salt. You don't have to use anything fancy. Pepper. And cumin. Now, rub it all in like that. And we're going to flip it. And, hold on just a second, let me rinse my fingers off after touching that meat. Okay, so, do the same thing to the other side. Now this recipe normally calls for a port wine. I didn't have any port, but I do have a really good Burgundy, so that's what we're using. Now you can use red wine, you can just use balsamic vinegar if you don't want to use an alcoholic beverage, you know, but you're going to get a different taste with each one of them. The port's going to make it a little sweeter, so I wouldn't put near as many of the raisins in it. Burgundy, it's just going to give it a richness, I would say. Okay, let's get this cumin on. Okay. All right, we are ready. Let's get this thing on. Woo-wee. Now we're going to sear both sides before we add the rest of our ingredients. Then we'll cover it and put it in the oven on 225 for about 2.5 to 3 hours. You're going to have to cook it low and slow till it's falling apart. I have seared this side, the other side is searing. Time to add our ingredients. This is 1 large yellow onion that I have diced. It doesn't have to be finely diced or anything, because at the end of this, you turn every bit of these ingredients into a nice gravy that goes around your roast. Put it in the food processor. It is phenomenal. So, that's 1 large yellow onion, 1 heaping tablespoon of minced garlic. This is some garlic that I put up this summer. $12 ounces of green olives. Tomatoes and all. One small box of raisins. Okay, so I didn't have a box, but I got half of it. Large box here, which is about the precise consistency. Okay, there's stuff in there. Okay. Well, they're going to give me grief, of course, when I'm sitting here trying to do something. There we go. Now this is going to give it that sweet flavor that we desire. Okay. Now, we have 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes. Now, the recipe calls for diced tomatoes. I didn't have any, so I'm using crushed, which is perfectly fine. You make allowances when you cook. Use what you have. Make it your own. That's what most cooks learn to do. I learned that years ago. Okay. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of water to this. Okay, there we go. Now, rest of the recipe. I have my balsamic vinegar here. Not in any hurry to come out. It's kind of a little thick. It's organic. There we go. Beautiful. And a good Merlot. Alrighty. This thing is ready for us to cover up and put in the oven. We'll check it in 2.5 hours. It's been in there 2.5 hours. What we're going to do now is you rake everything off of the roast. Just like this. Of course, you're going to have little tidbits and stuff. Just scrape them off. Because all of this that's in the pot and left is going to make a phenomenal gravy to go with our rustic garlic Parmesan mashed potatoes. So we set this roast right here, and then we start spooning everything into our food processor. Now, if you only have a blender, that's fine too. As long as you get it all combined like a puree, Oh, it's so good. Let me get this all in here and then I'll show you what to do next. We got it in our food processor. Now it's time to puree. Once this is completely smooth, we'll add it back into the pot. We got it pureed. We got it poured back over our roast that we put back in the pot. We're going to put the lid on and put it back in the oven on 200, not 225, 200, until we get our rustic potatoes, our mayonnaise rolls, and our Greek green beans finished. And then dinner's on. Now that my Greek pot roast is back in the oven and on warm on 200, I am getting the rustic garlic Parmesan potatoes ready. I have 6 medium-sized Idaho potatoes that I cleaned thoroughly on the outside, but I left the skin on. That's the rustic part. And so I've already diced these up. I diced some where they're not too thin, too small, because you don't want them falling apart. You're just going to very lightly, see the size there? That's a good bite size. You're just going to lightly mash them with garlic and butter and milk and your Parmesan. But we're going to get these boiling. I've already got my green beans. These are fresh green beans. They've been rinsed and the ends cut off. And these are grape tomatoes that I have halved and put in this. So this is about 4 cups of green beans. And this is a half of a small container of grape tomatoes that I've cut in half. Next thing I've got to do is slice up some onion to go with this. So let's get started. I just put my potatoes on. I covered them in water. Put them on the stove, put it on medium-high until it starts sounding like it's boiling, and then I'll take the lid off because I put the lid on to get it hotter quicker. I'll take the lid off and kind of stir them up, and once my knife or my fork go into one of those potatoes without hesitation, it's time to take them off and drain them. In the meantime, I have sliced off, I'd say about 1/8 of this large yellow onion, and I am making very small, like a julienne, slices in this onion so that it's very slippery. I've got a half a stick of butter in this pot. Now I'm going to melt this butter down and then add my onions and slowly cook them on like a medium until the onions become translucent. Then I'll add my onion or my green beans and my tomatoes, and then we'll take it from there. Butter is melted. Add our onion. These are wonderful green beans. My kids love them. Looks like my potatoes are starting to boil, so I'll take the lid off and I'll come back and stir these onions a little bit. Now once they start getting translucent in color, we'll add the green beans and turn the heat up just a little bit because these green beans are served al dente. So there we go. Now we're going to make these mayonnaise rolls, and when they're done, I'm going to rub some garlic butter with a little Parmesan in it on top of these rolls. Now I've got 2 cups of self-rising flour here that I'm going to sift. It doesn't say that you have to sift it, but I think it makes them airier, lighter. Messier. Okay. There we go. Push all that out. Now, 1 teaspoon of sugar. Well, that's just going to be just about as difficult as it can be, I guess. 1 teaspoon of sugar. Here we go. Now, finish off some of this milk that I've got going here. Get this open. Oops. 1 cup of milk. I use skim milk. You can use whatever kind of milk you want. And you can use whatever kind of mayonnaise you want. So, it also calls for 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise. And I'm adding a heaping in with that one because I didn't scrape them all out. I normally scrape them out. But I didn't that time because I'm kind of in a hurry. I'm hungry and I'm ready to eat. Okay, now let me rinse my fingers. Check my onions here. Oh, they're doing nicely. Okay. Onions are looking good. Pour in those green beans. And put some fresh cracked pepper right on top. Okay. And start stirring. Like I said, this is a pretty much an al dente thing. And you do not add the Parmesan cheese until you take them off the heat. But this is how you get it started. It's a beautiful, colorful meal too. Now, the next step, I use a Greek dressing, salad dressing. And you can put as much or as little as you want. That saves you from having to put all those spices in. Now, just keep an eye on this. Our potatoes are going low and slow right now. They should be done in just a second. Now, I got to get back over here and get my rolls mixed up. Oh, well, boogers. Okay. try not to be messy, but when it comes to anything using flour, I am the messiest person. Alright, that looks good to me. Now I'm going to spoon this. You only want it to be 2/3 of the way up the muffin tin. Give them room to grow. Alright guys, our potatoes are done. I'm going to drain them. And in this hot pot, I am putting a half a stick of butter. And then I am adding about a tablespoon's worth of minced garlic. Okay. Now, I'm going to put this back on the heat and get this garlic browning, and then we'll add the potatoes back. Got the mayonnaise rolls ready to go in. Now I just plopped it in the middle like that. They're going to even out and they're going to rise. And I said I thought the temperature was 425. Actually, it's 450. So get your oven preheated and then pop these things in and for about 10 to 12 minutes, or until they're golden brown and like a knife comes out nice and clean once you insert it in the middle. Can you see how pretty? Getting all nice and brown. You don't want to overcook it though, so this is the time to add our potatoes back in. Okay. So I've got these potatoes added back in. Stir that up real good. Now what we do, we turn our heat down to a low. And I usually add a good half a cup of milk right in the beginning. And stir it up real good. Because that potato is going to absorb that milk. Now, I'll lay my spoon over there. Like I said, this is a very rustic potato. Hold on just a second. You salt to taste. Okay. So I would have said that would be a good teaspoon of salt, just regular salt, nothing fancy. You can use kosher salt or you can use sea salt if you want. But I usually just use good old iodized salt that I have sitting right here on my stove. And you don't want them all creamy and everything. You want them rustic looking, just like these are. Once you put this meal together, it is so beautiful. And we've actually had it for like Easter and New Year's Day and Christmas. Of course, Thanksgiving we always do the traditional, but so let me add a little bit more milk. So that'd be another half cup of milk there. Now, time for the Parmesan. That's about a half a cup of Parmesan. And the flavor that this adds, phenomenal. Usually I can tell when I've got enough Parmesan in there. I can start smelling it. So I'm going to add just a little more. There we go. All right. I am putting this down on minimum. And I am putting the lid on it. And we can call that done. They have been turned completely off. They are finished. Like I said, we want them al dente. Covering that up. Our rolls are cooking and our Greek pot roast is done. Our mayonnaise rolls are done. Aren't they cute? So I melted a half a stick of butter. Then I put a half of a teaspoon of some garlic powder in there. And now I am going to brush the tops of my rolls very liberally. Oh, Lord. Now we've got enough to probably make about 12, 14, something like that. Oh, this smells so good. Delicious. This is one heck of a meal. And actually, if you can find a good chuck roast on sale, you could actually feed your family for 2 nights on a meal like this for under $20 easily. So, because you know, a lot of this stuff you keep in your pantry anyway. Let's see. Then just sprinkle some Parmesan like that. And then take it, flip them. There we go. Now let's get some more started. Okay, everybody, our supper is ready. We've got a beautiful chuck roast here. We've got a rustic, garlic, Parmesan, mashed potatoes, and put some of the gravy that was around our roast. Remember, we pureed it right on top. Our mayonnaise rolls with the garlic butter and Parmesan. And here are our green beans. And the last thing that we do is I always sprinkle just a little bit. That's how I got my kids to eat it when they were younger. Little Parmesan on top of them green beans. And that is a meal fit for a king. Now, please like us, subscribe, share us with your friends and family, and stop back by, join us again for another great Southern family meal.